Welcome everybody, it's Chris Roscoe, this is Operation Moksha, and today we're talking about how to integrate anger. Now, somebody asked me about this one, and I'm really happy to talk about this because this is the biggest obstacle I personally had to overcome in getting my mind right and getting my life together. So this one is very personal to me, and so I'll be going over how I did it and my whole experience of it, because this is actually the thing I know pretty much better than anything else. And a lot of the times it's what I help my clients with. So let's get into it. I'm going to back up a few years because it was about 4 to 5 years ago that I really learned how to do this. And this is when I was at the worst point in my entire life. I was ready to fucking kill myself because I had so much repressed anger and so much repressed rage that it had finally gotten the best of me and I was losing the fight, and my thoughts were turning into things that I hoped to avoid for pretty much ever. So I'm going to tell you what that means. So when I was a little kid, I was like a hardcore narcissist. I was really angry at the fact that my dad died pretty much right in front of me and that there was nothing I could do about it. And I realized that everything I ever loved could be taken away from me at a moment's notice, and I was helpless to do anything about it. Like, yeah, that was upsetting, and I was angry. And that anger, because I was a little kid, I didn't know how to do anything with it. It was just aimed outwardly and would just... Anytime anybody made me feel helpless or anytime anybody made me feel hurt or like I couldn't do a thing, like I would just tear them down until I felt strong enough again. But I hurt somebody, my first girlfriend at middle school. I hurt her and she didn't deserve it. She's a very, very, very sweet person and still is as far as I can tell. And she didn't deserve to be hurt the way that I hurt her or at all. And that really woke me up, that there was something inside of me that was causing me to act in a way I didn't want to act. And so, as best I did, I said, if anybody's going to hurt over this, it's going to be me. I'm going to aim this thing inside myself and I'm going to hurt myself because that makes more sense than hurting other people. Which is great, and so I tucked my anger away in this little pocket to make sure that it never hurt anybody again and so that it would only hurt me. And I did this with the intention to be a good person, right? That's why we put our anger away, is because we see, or a lot of times, because we see the potential of destruction that it carries. And it's very, very, very easy to think that, like the thing to do is to just push this away, because if I push it away, then it can't hurt anybody. But that's actually the opposite of what happens, is when you push it away, you make it more likely to hurt people. Because it doesn't actually leave, like pushing it away doesn't take it out of your system. It just puts it out of your awareness. Where if it was in your awareness, you could decide how you wanted to react to it. You could decide what you were going to do with it, and you were going to decide what kind of impact it was going to have on your life. But when you put it into your unconscious mind and you can't see it anymore, you lose the ability to decide because you just can't see it anymore. And so it goes into your unconscious. And your unconscious is the part that automates everything for you. It's the thing that, like, I don't know how to move my fingers, I just do it. I don't know how to walk. I don't know how to speak anymore. I don't consciously know how to do any of these things because they're unconscious at this point. And that's what happens with anything you push away. It becomes unconscious and it happens automatically. Which is why if you push your anger away, you may find that you have outbursts of anger at times that you really don't want to, because that thing is controlling you from outside of your awareness. So the thing I had to learn how to do was bring it back into awareness so that I could start integrating it and start choosing what kind of impact it was going to have on me and how I was going to relate to it and how I was going to let it show up. Now, obviously at the time, that was the scariest thing I could ever imagine doing, because all I ever wanted to do was be a good person, and my anger had rotten. It has rotted. Is that the word? It had rotted and turned into something awful, because one of the worst forms of torture that we currently know about is solitary confinement. And that's essentially what you're doing to any part of yourself that you push away. So as it's cut off from the whole, which is you and your awareness and your heart and your love and your kindness and your goodness and your attention and all these things that make everything flourish, you cut this part off from yourself. And not only do you isolate it, which is a horrible form of torture, but you're mean to it. You say, get out of here. Like, you're bad. You're evil. I don't want anything to do with you. You don't have any place in my life. You're destructive. You be whatever your version of shitty to it is. And it just continually deteriorates from its original state and gets unhealthier and unhealthier until it's fermented and turned into this just rotten thing that's going to have a toxic impact on your life. So I'm very aware that pulling it back into awareness after it's become that is horrifying, or it can be, because for me, it was the scariest thing anybody could have really ever told me. Like, the idea of ending my life and killing myself was less terrifying than the idea of taking this destructive part of myself and somehow bringing it close to me and like loving it. Because if I love it, then won't I just do awful things? Won't my filter just turn off and this thing will just do whatever it wants and hurt people? And oh my God, what'll fucking happen? There's all the stuff that went through my head. But the actual process of it is very, very different. You go slow, right? Because this is a big, volatile, overwhelming thing that you're dealing with, and you do want to take it slow, because if you don't, it could have serious negative impacts on your life. Like, the book I originally learned this stuff from was a book called Voice Dialogue by a couple named Hal and Sidra Stone. Highly recommend the book. It's really good. It makes all this stuff really simple, but it's also a little hippy-dippy, so if you're not into that shit, you might not like it. But it's very clear, and it gives you a good roadmap for how to do this stuff. Now, so you want to pace yourself, because one of the things I learned in that book is that they gave an example of somebody who had to learn how to bring back their repressed anger, and they did it, but they did it kind of irresponsibly, and so they ended up blowing up on their boss and telling him to fuck himself, and then they got fired. So that's possible. And so you want to go slow, and you want to be conscious, and you want to be aware, and you also need to be conscious aware of when you need help. If you're going to be doing things like this, you need to take responsibility for when you need help. Because if you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing something that people generally get help with on your own. And I did it on my own. I know plenty of people that do it on their own, so it is possible. But as my official recommendation is, it's very possible that you need help. And it's good to look into that and know who you need help from, because this is volatile stuff we're dealing with, especially anger. It's the thing designed to rip things apart that are trying to hurt us. Like, that's what anger is for. So when your boundaries are violated and different things happen, like, anger is your response to get you back up to fucking do something about it. And so it can be volatile. So with that said, it's important to find really healthy ways to express it. Because what you essentially want to do is vent all the really gross stuff. Like, I talked about this in my shadow work video, where all you're essentially doing is venting until your situation makes sense. Like, you're going to get angry and you're going to overreact. And you're like, for me, I was somebody would piss me off or something, and I would like want to tear them apart. I would be viscerally furious. And that's what was so scary to me, is like, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do? But you can actually know that the volatile, scary stuff is just the top layer, and underneath all of that is the value. So you want to find healthy ways to deal with the top layer. For me, I started taking Kung Fu, and so I could get my aggression out. My Sifu made me do push-ups till I cried once, and he would just work me really, really, really hard, so I was getting that aggression out. I also would beat up my couch if I needed to. I journaled. I joined a men's group where I could talk about this stuff. I learned how to meditate. I did all kinds of stuff. But the key thing is to do it in a healthy way, because you can vent. Like, I prefer to vent vocally, because I get my thoughts out easier when I'm speaking than I am writing. I think too quick to write my thoughts out. But some people need to write. Some people need to talk it out with somebody they trust. Some people need to talk it out with a therapist. It's up to you to decide what's best for you. But again, exercise caution, at least until you figure out what you're doing. Like I said, I learned how to do this on my own, but it was a bumpy road. I overwhelmed myself a lot, and I would get stuck in bed for days at times. And some of us can't afford to do that. I was much younger at the time, so it was okay for me to do it. Anyways, so when you vent, you get all the top layer shit out. And anytime you've ever vented, you feel better, right? And you can think clearly about your situation. So the biggest thing to know about integrating anger into your life is that the scary stuff that you're afraid having a negative impact on your life is just the top layer. And underneath all of it is wisdom. Underneath all of it is stuff you can actually take care of. And when you learn to get really good at venting the top layer stuff, the really kind of awful stuff, you learn how to stand up for your boundaries and values in a way to where it never really gets that crazy in the first place. Like, I don't get that angry anymore. I no longer have visions of like beating the shit out of people because they like cut me off. Like that doesn't happen to me anymore. I stand up for my boundaries. I stand up for my values. I stand up for what I need to stand up to consistently enough, because through venting, I've learned enough over time that I pretty much get mad about the same stuff. So now I have boundaries in place to make sure that the anger never even arises in the first place. And so that's where you're really wanting to go. But I understand that there's scary stuff to deal with in the meantime. And it's okay to be scared. The fact that you're scared probably means that you're a good person. It means that you want to be responsible and not let this thing get out of control and hurt people. So it's good to be scared. It's good to be cautious. That means you're being smart. That means that you're aware that you could hurt other people and you want to take responsibility for that. So I applaud you if you're scared. It's good to be scared. Write about the fear. Talk about the fear. All of that. It's all important. But as far as anger goes, anger's there to make sure that you stand up for yourself. And if you need to vent to figure out what exactly you need to stand up for, then do it. Find a healthy way to do it. And if you need help figuring out what that is for you, let me know, and I'd be happy to help you figure it out. We can get on the phone, and I'll talk to you for free and help you figure out exactly what boundaries need to be stood up for and what a good game plan to actually integrate that into your life would be. So I love you. Thank you. And I'll see you next time.